Most women accept the premise that intimacy post-60 is simply a reminiscence, a faded photograph of youth. You may have convinced yourself that passion is obsolete and that sexual vitality is reserved for younger individuals, couples, and life phases. But I must assert that this is the most significant false narrative perpetrated upon women in our age demographic. I have witnessed the complete spectrum, a past spent pursuing pleasure devoid of authentic connection, and a present characterized by a loving marriage where intimacy has deepened and enriched over decades. I can definitively state that the latter perspective prevails every single time. You may dismiss this as an easy declaration, but consider this. Had anyone suggested in my 20s that I would experience greater sexual fulfillment in my 60s, I would have been entirely skeptical. I would have believed it implausible, a contradiction of accepted wisdom. Yet, here I stand, holding a profound insight I wish had been shared with me years ago. I intend to share it with you now. But first, you must internalize this intimacy post-60 is not a diminished version of previous experience. It is not a residue or a shadow. It is a fundamentally different state, a state unimaginable in youth. Once discovered, you will have no desire to revert. Therefore, remain engaged, as in the next few minutes, I will demonstrate why intimacy does not necessarily attenuate with age. It can be reborn, and I will disclose the first of the new principles that facilitates this transformation. It remains a source of professional astonishment that a woman in my age group can engage in candid discussion with peers regarding cholesterol values, specific statin regimens, antihypertensive medications, joint replacements, and even post-surgical bowel function. Yet, when the subject of sexual experience arises, the conversation is immediately met with avoidance. The very topic that should foster laughter, relief, and deeper connection instead erects a barrier of silence. That silence is the environment in which desire atrophies. The corrosive effect of silence. I recognize that many of you have experienced this within your own relationships. You have lain adjacent to your long-term partner, acutely aware of the emotional distance between you. You may have longed to initiate contact, to offer a touch, to articulate your genuine desires, but the words are suppressed. You retreat into the pretense of sleep, and the silence intensifies until it becomes a palpable, third presence in the room. The tragedy lies in the fact that the person with whom you should be able to discuss your body most easily is often the one you address the least. Furthermore, the silence that undermines intimacy is not exclusive to the spousal dynamic. It is perpetuated within clinical settings. Too many physicians still dismiss post-menopausal sexuality as a topic unworthy of professional discussion. Unless a pharmacological prescription is explicitly requested, the conversation is never initiated. Consequently, women are left to quietly endure cirrhosis, a dryness, discomfort, diminished libido, or more broadly, the distressing feeling of invisibility. Even in social circles, we freely discuss new medications, grandchildren, and vacation photos, but the mention of sex instantly carries a scandalous connotation, as if desire should be sequestered with youthful artifacts. I urge you to confront this question directly. Who imposed the age limit of 60? Who decreed that after a certain birthday, you should censor your body, conceal your desires, and pretend the ache for touch is no longer present? Who determined that older women are destined to fade into invisibility, becoming both undesiring and undesired? I promise you this, that message does not originate from your biological reality, and it certainly does not originate from truth. Intimacy does not disappear with age, it evolves, it deepens. But this occurs only if you refuse to allow the silence to maintain its control. Only if you dare to defy the taboo and admit the full scope of your wants. Intimacy post-60 is not a residual fragment of youth. It is not a consolation prize. When approached with the correct perspective, it becomes more honest, more liberating, and more potent than anything experienced in your 20s or 30s. And I intend to guide you to that point, understanding intimacy as a whole person experience. But before I share the first of the new principles that permit passion to flourish later in life, you must internalize a fundamental insight. Intimacy is not solely about mechanics or friction. It is not merely about the coordination of bodies. there is a profound subsurface dynamic that most women never discuss. Once you comprehend it, everything changes. And that is our immediate focus. For far too long, we have been conditioned to perceive sex as merely a physical act. A collision of bodies, a repetition of motions, a task to be checked off, or worse, a conjugal duty. That is the superficial script absorbed by most in their 20s and 30s. And that is the script that leads to widespread disillusionment by midlife. When the body changes, energy shifts, and familiar rhythms become dysfunctional, that shallow script collapses. But here is the reality most women fail to grasp until later in life: intimacy was never exclusively physical. Desire is not born in the skin alone. It originates in the mind, in memory, in the affective core, and in the subtle neurochemistry of the body. When you kiss your beloved partner, when you allow yourself to be authentically perceived, when you grant yourself permission for vulnerability, you are not merely exchanging touch. You are releasing oxytocin, modulating your stress response, and creating new neural pathways of pleasure that permeate your entire system. In other words, intimacy accesses parts of the self that no pill, lotion, or performance technique ever could. This is why intimacy post-60 achieves such extraordinary depth. The young believe that passion is defined by stamina and spontaneity, by duration and climax frequency. They measure the intensity of the fire in terms of friction, but advancing age brings the freedom to perceive intimacy for what it truly is: not a race, not a performance, but a gateway into profound connection. You begin to recognize that a shared look across the table can be more electric than a kiss. How a hand resting on your back can be more unsettling than any physical maneuver. You realize that the most powerful element of intimacy is not the physical act, but the communication: I see you, I choose you, I still desire you. The evolution of passion. When you comprehend this, an internal shift occurs. You cease measuring yourself against your younger body and start embracing the intimacy that only a woman of 60 or older can offer. Because, I assure you, age brings honesty. You no longer possess the tolerance for pretense, for silence, for feigning satisfaction to maintain superficial harmony. You crave depth, boldness, and truth. That is not a deficit, that is an evolution. But here is the crucial element you must internalize. When intimacy is viewed as something purely physical, it atrophies with age. But when intimacy is embraced as a whole body, whole mind, whole heart experience, it intensifies with time. And that growth necessitates something most of us were never taught. It requires unlearning the falsehoods and discovering a distinct set of principles. Principles that are not centered on performance, but on intimacy. In a moment, I will share the first of those principles with you. Once you receive it, your perception of the silence in your bedroom will be irrevocably altered. Let us be honest. At some point, intimacy was distorted. It was removed from the context of genuine connection, stripped of its depth, and marketed as something shallow, performative, and ultimately unsatisfying. Observe the cultural messaging: media, online content, and dramas all perpetuate the narrative that intimacy is about performance, novelty, and conforming to an impossible standard. This affects both sexes. Men have been fed a script where intimacy is quantified by conquest, stamina, and youthful capacity. The result is that women feel insufficient, men feel immense pressure, and couples pursue a fantasy that was never grounded in reality. Confronting cultural distortion, then came the rise of pornography, which promised shortcuts to pleasure but delivered only distortion. It conditions the body to respond to digital images instead of tactile connection, to lust instead of love. When women internalize these distorted images, or when men introduce them into the marital dynamic, intimacy collapses under the weight of comparison. Because authentic intimacy cannot flourish in a space occupied by third-party fantasies. This distortion is even more insidious than overt images. Consider the very language we employ. We rarely use the phrase, making love, anymore. We use the clinical mechanical term, sex, a three-letter word divested of meaning. When love is removed from the equation, what remains is a transaction. Women over 60 are particularly sensitive to the ache of this reduction, knowing instinctively that they are designed for something more profound than transactional exchange. They long for communion. The heartbreaking consequence is this: when intimacy is distorted in the culture, it infiltrates our private lives. We begin to accept the idea that sex is only for the young, that it revolves around lust and novelty, and that once these factors recede, the experience is concluded. Women cease articulating their desires. Men stop initiating connection. Silence intensifies, and marriages quietly settle into emotional isolation. But that distortion is not the final verdict. Not for you. The truth is still accessible, waiting to be reclaimed. And I assure you, when you remove the cultural falsehoods, when you begin to rebuild intimacy from a foundation of honesty and connection, sex does not merely survive age, it flourishes. In a moment, I will reveal the first true principle that makes this possible. But before that, we must directly confront one of the most dangerous myths of all, the belief that passion is the exclusive domain of the young. Until we dismantle that myth, none of the subsequent truths can take root. If you were to survey almost any couple, asking when they believe intimacy is at its peak, they will offer the same response. When you're young. They will cite the 20s or early 30s. After that, they anticipate a slow decline into routine, boredom, and ultimate cessation. That is the pervasive cultural narrative. It is the reason older women are often absent from romantic portrayals, why media makes light of dispassionate older couples, and why so many women quietly conclude their desires are a relic of the past. The myth claims passion, lust, and pleasure belong to the young, and that once that season has passed, one should gracefully withdraw. The new rules of intimacy, but I ask you to consider this honestly. When you were in your 20s, was your sexual experience truly everything you envisioned? Was it consistently fulfilling, satisfying, and deeply connected? Or was it often hurried, sometimes clumsy, shrouded in insecurity, comparison, and unspoken expectations? If we are to be truthful, most of us would concede that youth does not automatically equate to superior intimacy. In fact, it frequently equates to confusion and sometimes emotional vacancy. Now, contrast that with the potential of your 60s. By this age, you have self-knowledge. You know your body, its capacities, and its vulnerabilities. You know what feels good, and more importantly, you know the quality of connection you wish to cultivate with your partner. You possess the courage to refuse what is unfulfilling and to affirm what activates your vitality. The quality of passion derived from this place is not weaker than the passion of youth. It is stronger because it is rooted in truth rather than performance. Here is the secret we were never told in our youth. Intimacy in your 60s can be deeper, bolder, and more liberating than it ever was in your 20s. But there is a contingency: you cannot adhere to the old rules. You cannot cling to the scripts that were ultimately dysfunctional. To enter this new dimension of intimacy, you must embrace new principles. Principles that allow you to adapt, to grow, to evolve into a more potent connection than you thought possible. In a moment, I will give you the very first of those principles. It is simple, but it changes everything. It is the gateway to shattering the silence, rekindling desire, and ultimately creating intimacy that lasts. But before that, you need to understand something vital about the mechanism of desire. Because it is not merely about hormones or age. It is about appetite, and whether that appetite nourishes you or leaves you depleted depends entirely on what you choose to feed it. Conceptualize your sexuality as an appetite. Like hunger, it can be prematurely awakened, improperly nourished, or neglected until it atrophies. And also like hunger, it is not something you can simply deactivate without consequence. Some women had their appetite stirred in ways that were rushed, corrosive, or painful. Some discovered desire through experiences that left them feeling more empty than full. Others spent decades treating intimacy like fast food, quick, convenient, but fundamentally lacking in nourishment. And then they question why their desire feels thin, weak, or absent. The first new rule: shattering the silence. The truth is simple. What you use to nourish your appetite matters. When intimacy is fueled by lust alone, it burns intensely and rapidly. But it leaves a sense of starvation afterward. Lust feeds the surface, not the self. And when intimacy becomes solely about performance, the appetite becomes distorted. You can engage repeatedly, but you will never feel satisfied because the consumption does not meet the deeper need. But when intimacy is awakened slowly, carefully, in its own appropriate season, and then nourished with love, with patience, with truth, a profound difference emerges. Your appetite grows strong. It does not atrophy with age, it matures. Just as a woman's palate for food evolves, so does her palate for intimacy. The sugary rush of youthful lust no longer satisfies, but a richer, deeper connection can leave you feeling nourished for days. Here is the part most women over 60 need to hear. Your appetite is not gone. It may be dormant. It may have been fed with inadequate scraps. It may even have been confused or damaged. But it is still present, and it can be reawakened, retrained, and healed. But you cannot achieve this with silence. You cannot achieve this with pretense. And you certainly cannot achieve this by adhering to the principles learned in your 20s. This brings me to the first of the new principles. It is not glamorous. It is not about lingerie or complex techniques. It is about something much more powerful. Something that has the capacity to reactivate your appetite in ways you never thought possible. If there is one truth I wish every woman over 60 could internalize, it is this: silence is the ultimate enemy of intimacy. We were conditioned to believe that proper women do not speak of sex, that a wife is expected to quietly accept whatever her husband offers or silently endure what he does not, that expressing our own desires is either shameful or selfish. And after years, sometimes decades of silence, it becomes reflexive. But I assure you, silence does not protect your relationship, it strangles it. Desire cannot breathe in an environment where words are suppressed. When you fail to articulate your needs, when you do not ask for what you crave, your partner is left to speculate. And speculation never builds intimacy, it constructs distance. The first principle of intimacy post-60 is simple, but it will fundamentally shift your foundation. You must talk about it. Talk about what you enjoy. Talk about what you miss. Talk about what you no longer desire. And yes, talk about what you secretly yearn for but have never dared to utter. The truth is, talking about intimacy is itself a form of intimacy. Every time you speak of vulnerability, you are stepping into a deeper connection before any physical touch has occurred. Now, I recognize many women recoil at this thought. I wouldn't even know how to begin, they say. But here is the starting point. You begin not with accusations, but with invitations. Not with "you never touch me," but with "I enjoy when you hold me, and I would like more of that." Not with "you don't want me anymore," but with "I miss the closeness we used to share." These subtle linguistic shifts transform a potential source of conflict into a doorway. They transform what could be blame into bonding. And do not underestimate the power of simply naming the emotional truth. If you feel nervous, state it. If you feel shy, admit it. If you lack the right words, confess it. The courage to be honest is infinitely more attractive than pretending everything is fine. Once the words are spoken, you will be astonished at how often your partner has been waiting. Just as uncertain, just as hungry for the same conversation. This is why I designate communication as the first principle. Because until the silence is broken, nothing else can be built. No touch will feel secure. No gesture will feel complete if you are not communicating. But once you open your mouth, once you dare to articulate what has been buried, you grant your intimacy the permission to breathe again. Secret twinse. Defeating the body image trap. The beauty is that this principle extends beyond the bedroom. When you practice honest communication about intimacy, you will find it permeates every facet of your relationship. You will laugh more, argue less, and perceive each other with new clarity. Because words are not merely words, they are bridges. And the first step to rebuilding desire is learning how to cross them together. Now, once the silence is broken, something unexpected begins to emerge. For many women, it is not just about what they say. It is about how they feel in their own skin when they finally attempt to speak. And that is where the next danger appears, one that quietly sabotages more intimacy than you realize: the trap of negative body image. There is a question I must ask you to answer honestly. Not for me, but for yourself. When you contemplate intimacy, what is the very first factor that causes you to hesitate? For many women, the answer is not their partner. It is not even the desire itself. The hesitation begins in the mirror. We are masters of self-criticism. We observe the stria, stretch marks, the dermal laxity, the adipose tissue redistribution. We compare ourselves to a former self or to impossible digital images. And then we question why our desire feels muted. The appetite is not absent. Shame has merely occupied the space and begun to consume first. Here is the truth you need to hear from me with absolute clinical authority. Your body is not the enemy of intimacy. It is the gateway. And when you reject your own reflection, you close the very door that could guide you back to passion. Consider the dynamic. If you feel unattractive, how easy is it to withdraw from touch? If you are convinced your partner is secretly judging you, how difficult is it to relax, to surrender, to permit closeness? Shame is not desirable. Shame is suffocating. The tragedy is this: most of the time, your partner does not perceive the flaws you obsess over. He does not see the scar, the softness, the line you criticize. He sees the woman he has loved for decades. The one who bore children, who endured burdens, who has shared a lifetime with him. While you are engaged in self-dissection, he may be silently longing for you, questioning why you conceal yourself from him. Body ownership is ally, but body image is not solely about aesthetics. It is also about ownership. Too many women describe their bodies as if they are antagonists. My hips ache, my skin is dry, my hormones are gone. As if their bodies are the enemy. Listen carefully. Your body has delivered you to this precise moment. It has survived. It has adapted. It is still capable of giving and receiving pleasure. If only you will cease treating it as a burden and begin treating it as an ally. So, how do you begin to break free from the body image trap? You start small. You speak kindly to your reflection. You allow yourself to be seen without apology. You remind yourself that intimacy is not a posed photograph, it is a human connection. And you practice gratitude for the body that is still present, still functioning, still capable of awakening. The most liberating outcome is this. When you begin to perceive your body with new eyes, your partner begins to perceive you with new eyes as well. Confidence is magnetic. Acceptance is contagious. The more you embrace yourself, the more you open the doorway for intimacy to return. Secret 30: Scheduling desire, the sacred pact. But what happens once you have started to speak? Once you have begun to reclaim your body, and you are ready to re-engage with passion? That is when a practical question arises. How do you keep desire alive when spontaneity is no longer a viable reality? And that leads us directly into the next principle. One that feels controversial, one that many couples resist, but one that can transform intimacy post 60 more than almost anything else. The word that makes many couples over 60 cringe is scheduling. We have been conditioned to believe that intimacy should be spontaneous, that passion should strike like lightning, unexpected and irresistible. We cling to the youthful image and conclude that if intimacy requires planning, it is no longer authentic. But let me ask you, how is that belief currently serving you? If you are waiting for lightning to strike, how long has the wait been? Weeks, months, years. For many couples, spontaneity is the very myth keeping them apart. At 60, life is different. The body needs preparation. Energy levels fluctuate. Medications, hormones, and digestive issues all affect evening disposition. If you continuously wait for passion to simply happen, you may be waiting indefinitely. Here is the principle that changes everything. Desire does not die when it is scheduled. It grows. Planning intimacy is not clinical. It is sacred. Think of it like planning a vacation. You book the tickets. You set the dates. And as the day approaches, anticipation builds. The same principle applies in the bedroom. When you know that Sunday afternoon or Wednesday evening is reserved, something begins to stir long before the first touch. You anticipate it, prepare for it, savor the coming connection. Scheduling does not strip away romance, it creates the space for romance to return. Instead of waiting until you are both exhausted, you select a time when you are awake, present, and unhurried. Instead of letting intimacy become another forgotten item at the bottom of the to-do list, you elevate it to priority status. That decision alone signals to your partner that they still matter, that closeness is still paramount. Some couples initially resist, calling it awkward or too structured, but awkward is not the enemy. indifference is. Once they attempt it, they often find that what felt clinical at the start quickly becomes exciting. They look forward to it. They establish rituals around it. A favorite meal, a bath, soft music. And suddenly intimacy is not only restored but deepened. Scheduling desire also reveals a hidden truth. Intimacy is not only about the act itself. It is about everything that leads up to it. The anticipation, the small touches, the playfulness, the conversations. When you start building this kind of rhythm into your relationship, you create a foundation for something even more powerful. Secret 40. The intimacy reset. Touch without expectation, because sometimes it isn't just about planning time together. It's about learning how to restart intimacy when the pause has been so prolonged that you don't know where to begin. And that brings us to the intimacy reset. There comes a moment in many marriages when intimacy hasn't just slowed down, it has stopped. Weeks become months, sometimes even years, and suddenly the thought of beginning again feels overwhelming. How do you break the silence? How do you overcome the wall of awkwardness that has built up? Here is the truth. Intimacy can be restarted. It does not matter if the pause has been months or years. Your body, your brain, and your relationship can be awakened again. And one of the most powerful tools for this is the intimacy reset. It begins with the simplest of acts: touch without expectation. No performance, no goal, no pressure. Just allowing yourselves to rediscover each other through small, intentional moments of connection. Imagine sitting on the bed, fully clothed if you wish, and simply running your hand down your partner's arm. Imagine taking turns exploring how different kinds of touch feel. Not rushing toward intercourse, simply remembering that this body, this person is yours to know again. This is the brilliance of the reset. It removes the fear of failure. There is no not doing it right, because the goal is not to perform, but to reconnect. Couples who practice this often find that laughter returns. Tension eases, curiosity is sparked, and slowly, the wall begins to crumble. Here is the secret I want you to hold on to. Sometimes the most healing form of intimacy is not wild passion, but gentle presence. Just lying side by side, touching without expectation, can awaken more desire than trying to force what no longer feels natural. It is like watering a dry garden. You begin with small streams, and before long, the soil is ready to bloom again. Secret 50. Defeating the hidden bedroom killers. Once intimacy has been restarted, many women are surprised by what surfaces next. They realize that the problem was never just lack of time or energy. There are other forces quietly poisoning desire. Forces we rarely talk about but which steal passion little by little until nothing is left. These are the bedroom killers. The first killer is neglect. Desire is like a flame, and flames don't go out suddenly. They dim slowly as oxygen disappears. Every time you say, "Not tonight," every time you push away touch, every time you avoid eye contact in a vulnerable moment, a little more air leaves the fire. The second killer is comparison. Whether from media or the internet, the images we consume distort reality. When a man fills his imagination with fantasy, his body begins to expect a performance his partner cannot and should not replicate. And when a woman consumes media that portrays intimacy as effortless and perfect, she sets herself up for disappointment. Intimacy cannot thrive in a room where fantasy is invited in to mock reality. The third killer is untreated change. Post-menopause, many women experience dryness, thinning tissue, or pain. Men often experience erectile difficulties or changes in stamina. These are not moral failings, they are biological shifts. But when ignored, they create shame, avoidance, and silence. The most dangerous killer of all is silence itself, because silence allows all the others to grow stronger. When neglect is never named, it becomes normal. When comparison is never confessed, it becomes secret. When pain is never spoken, it becomes permanent. Silence does not protect your relationship. It smothers it. The good news is that every one of these killers can be defeated. Intimacy is not destroyed overnight, and it does not have to be restored overnight either. With the right practices, you can begin to push back. You can reclaim desire from neglect. You can replace comparison with connection. You can treat what is physical, heal what is emotional, and shatter the silence that has kept you apart. Secret 60. The 5-minute rules addressing inertia. And there is one very simple, practical principle that can help. One that sounds almost playful, yet it can reignite a spark faster than you think possible. It doesn't require acrobatics or hours of effort. It only requires a few minutes and a willingness to try. I call it the 5-minute rule. One of the most common complaints I hear from women over 60 is simple. By the time I'm in bed, I'm too tired. After a long day, intimacy can feel like one more item on a never-ending list. And so, it gets postponed again and again until weeks slip into months. But here is the secret most women don't realize. Intimacy doesn't need hours of preparation. Sometimes it only takes 5 minutes. I call this the 5-minute rule. It's a playful pact you make with your partner. The rule is simple: if one of you is interested, the other agrees to give 5 minutes of genuine openness to see if desire can be awakened. More often than not, the hardest part of intimacy is getting started. Think of it like exercise. How many times have you dreaded going for a walk, only to find that once you begin, you feel better than you expected? Intimacy works the same way. A kiss that lasts a little longer. A caress, a playful word. 5 minutes of sparks can be enough to reignite a flame. The beauty is this: even if those 5 minutes don't lead to more, they still count, because touch without pressure still nourishes connection. Sometimes those 5 minutes become a tender embrace that eases you into sleep. And sometimes they are simply a reminder that you are still wanted, still chosen, still alive to one another. Couples who adopt the 5-minute rule often find that the fear of rejection disappears. The 5-minute rule shows you that intimacy doesn't have to be complicated. That even in your 60s, desire can begin with something small, playful, and manageable, and from there it can grow stronger. Secret 70: healing the past and building a legacy of love now. There's something important we need to talk about. Because for many women, the real obstacle isn't time or even energy. It's the shadow of the past. The shame, the regrets, the moments of brokenness that still echo years later. And until those are faced, no rule, no ritual, no technique will ever feel complete. Every woman carries a history into the bedroom. Some of those histories are filled with love and safety, but many are not. Women carry regrets about choices made in youth, about silence when they should have spoken, about encounters that were careless or unkind. They also carry the wounds of trauma, coercion, or betrayal. And all of them ask the same haunting question: am I broken beyond repair? Here is the answer I want you to hear with absolute clarity. No, you are not. Desire can be healed. Intimacy can be redeemed. And your past, no matter how heavy it feels, does not have to define your future. Science tells us something remarkable. The brain is capable of change. Even late in life, old patterns can be rewritten. Memories that once triggered shame or fear can lose their power. And intimacy, when approached gently and with care, can literally rewire the way you experience pleasure and connection. Redemption does not come through pretending the past didn't happen. It comes through choosing differently now. If you lived through years of promiscuity without fulfillment, you now have the chance to embrace intimacy rooted in love. If your sexuality was wounded by abuse or betrayal, you can create boundaries and rituals that honor your safety and bring your body back into trust. If shame has been your constant companion, you can begin speaking to yourself with kindness and allowing your partner to see you without judgment. I have watched women in their 60s and 70s step into the most satisfying intimacy of their lives. Not because they erased the past, but because they refused to let it have the final word. They chose to build something new. And in doing so, they discovered that love was still waiting for them. The final secret: seeing through the eyes of love. Intimacy after 60 is not just about pleasure in the moment. It's about what you are building for the years ahead. Every choice you make now, every touch, every word, every act of honesty is weaving a legacy. I call it your sexual legacy. Every couple leaves behind a pattern, a story that shapes how they see each other until their very last breath. Some couples build a legacy of avoidance, years of silence and quietly wishing for more, but never daring to ask. Others build a legacy of lust, mistaking intensity for intimacy until the hunger burns out. But there are couples who choose differently. They build a legacy of intimacy, one where touch is tender, where words are honest, where every stage of life adds new layers of depth instead of stripping passion away. A legacy of intimacy means that when you look at each other in your 70s, you don't just see wrinkles. You see a partner whose body has carried decades of desire, whose eyes still hold a spark reserved only for you. The beautiful irony is that couples who stop chasing youth often end up with more passion in their later years than they ever had at the start. Because when the pressure to perform is gone, what remains is freedom. Freedom to explore slowly, freedom to be honest, freedom to rediscover what it means to be chosen again and again. Your sexual legacy is not just about what happens in the bedroom. It's about the atmosphere you create in your marriage. It's not too late. No matter what kind of legacy you have built so far, you can change it. Starting today, you can choose to stop feeding silence and start feeding connection. You can choose to stop seeing intimacy as something you used to have and start seeing it as something you are still creating. We now arrive at the heart of it. The one secret that binds all the others together: intimacy after 60 thrives when you learn to see each other, not through the eyes of lust, but through the eyes of love. Lust is fleeting. Lust fixates on the body, on what is tight or toned, on what is new and novel. Lust always demands more, and when lust is the measure, age feels like the enemy. But love, real love, sees differently. Love looks at a body softened by time and sees devotion. Love looks at scars and stretch marks and sees the story of years survived together. Love looks past the calendar and says, "You are still mine. You are still wanted." And when intimacy flows from that vision, it does not fade with age, it flourishes. This is the final secret. It is not the position you try or the hours you spend. It is the way you choose to see each other. When you allow love to color your eyes, your partner becomes not an aging body, but a soul intertwined with your own. And in that place, passion awakens naturally. Desire grows deeper, not shallower. Intimacy after 60 is not a shadow of what you once had. It is a new creation stronger than youth, because it is rooted in truth. It is not about keeping up with the past. It is about writing a new story for the future. So here is my challenge to you. Do not settle for silence. Do not bow to comparison. Do not believe the myth that passion belongs only to the young. Instead, choose today to see yourself and your partner through eyes of love. Begin again, even if it feels awkward. Reach across the sheets, start the 5 minutes, plan the time, speak the words, and build the legacy you want to leave behind. Because intimacy after 60 is not the end of your story. It is the beginning of a chapter you were never told was possible. If this spoke to you, share it with someone who needs hope. Leave a comment below. I want to hear your voice, your questions, your story, and subscribe to the Female Health Podcast so you don't miss the next conversation we'll share together. Because this community is proof that women do not fade with time. We rise.